What date did you adopt?
We adopted October of 2011.
What prompted you to adopt a child at this time?
We had several failed. We'd had one natural child, biological child, and we'd had several attempts to have another biological child, and we're unsuccessful at those. And then I had to have an emergency hysterectomy. I took a year to heal, and then we just felt like our family still was not complete, and so we prayed about it, and we decided to go ahead with adoption.
Okay. Was there any factors that made it difficult to adopt?
In our instance, we found the process fairly easy. The paperwork is intense. I had more paperwork to file for adoption papers than I did to become a temporary citizen of Brazil.
Wow.
So that tells you something. We had to have fingerprints and a background check from Homeland Security and all sorts of other steps for adoption. So it's an intense process. That was the most difficult part.
What was you just explained that. Does your child know they are adopted?
Yes.
Okay. How did you tell her, or how does she know?
I've always, so my stance is not speaking about something gives it a sense of shame.
Yeah.
So we've just always talked about, she's adopted. I answer questions in front of her. Some people laugh and say she looks just like you. Like, I know, God knew what he was doing. She was meant to be mine. Yep. But it's funny that she's adopted but looks just like me. So she hears that word at her age. I don't really think she knows what it means. It's kind of interesting watching. She's just now started putting a pillow under her table, under her belly, and saying, I'm having a baby. So she's never even asked questions like, did I come from your belly? What does adopted mean? Yeah. So, and there's some books that you can read to them. Mm-hmm. So she's familiar with the adoption idea, and we've read books to her. But I'll tell you one thing that was really, really cool is Doc McStuffins, which she likes. They just added a baby to the family through adoption.
Oh, that's nice.
So the new character, Maya, it talks about being matched and when she comes home and how they find a name for her, and she's adopted.
That's awesome.
So that gives her some positive
reinforcement. Mm-hmm. Do you think the foster care system today is flawed?
I would say every human system is flawed because as humans we're flawed people. Yeah. So it's highly funded. It is, and I think the real problem here is that there's a lack of families willing to step forward and foster children.
Yeah.
And that's for a multitude of reasons, financial reasons, but also what I find flawed is the court system that gives poor parents chance after chance after chance. And it's heartbreaking to invest in a child or be a foster parent only to have that foster child given back to a bad situation and then removed again. And that breaks the foster parents' hearts every time too. So it is what it is, but it needs more funding and it needs more families willing to step forward and foster. And I think more families would if they had a stronger sense that the courts would move to act in the best interest of the child in a more firm way.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm going to ask you our essential question now to see how you respond with that. If the adoption rate is going down and the rate of children entering the system is going up, then what is the purpose of using government funding to keep children in the foster care system?
Well, just for that reason, even if they're not getting adopted, we still have to care for them. What are they going to do, be homeless? No. And it is tragic. I've volunteered with Saving Grace, who, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they are the local charity that takes in girls who have actually graduated out of foster care at 18, having never been adopted, and they have no family, and they're all alone in the world.
Yeah.
And when you exit foster care, you get a certain amount of money and a suitcase. That's all you get.
Really?
And you're alone in the world.
It's crazy.
And so Saving Grace lets you have a place to live as long as you're enrolled in school or currently working. Yeah. And they try and be a bridge to, I'm 18, to how do I live in the world all alone. I mean, think about how much support you get from your family, from your friends, and these kids have never known family and will never know family, and then all of a sudden at 18, they're done. Yeah. So.
That's sad. Yeah, because we've had to research our topic, and that's one of the questions that boys most likely. I think we have, actually.
Boys tend to, more than girls, when they don't become adopted, I can't remember the percentage rate, more likely to become part of a gang member because it feels familial
Yeah.
and it becomes there daily.
Yeah. That's what.
Unfortunately.
Do you think adoption is for everyone?
No. I think you have to have the right heart. I think there are unfortunately still in this day and age people who look on adoption as unnatural and would make a marked difference between a biological and an adopted child. And the other thing you have to consider is the extended family. How will they embrace the child?
Yeah.
I think the same thing applies though to biracial children as well.
Makes sense. Would you like your child to have found their or have a relationship with their birth family?
No, I wouldn't. Not the parents. In our case, the parents were not stable emotionally, financially, or mentally to the point that I would want any interference. And ours was a private adoption. But she does have full-blood siblings. And I am in full support of her finding on the sibling register her siblings, if that's what she chooses to do. And if she wants to find her parents, I will support her in her decision. I never knew my biological father, and while we were waiting to be matched, I went ahead and found my biological father so that I would be able to tell her my journey story and what the outcome was and how that went so that I could better support her if she ever chose to make that decision.
Yes. Okay. What made you choose going private adoption versus going through the state?
A couple of things. The wait time for the state was incredibly long. And we were more interested in adoption from birth, and private adoption allows that, whereas state does not, because you're obviously been in the system for a reason and the child was older. I was an early childhood specialist and really know what those formative years mean to me as a parent.
Yes.
And that I wanted to be in control if I could from the beginning. So we were actually matched with our birth mother when she was in her third trimester. So I was actually there for all the last trimester appointments, and I was in labor and delivery with her, and I actually cut the cord.
Oh wow, that's nice. That's good to have that relationship in that early. What made you choose going with a infant rather than an older child?
Well, like I said, if it had been, and let me say, I was open to taking an older child. I might have leaned even more that way had I not already had a biological sibling.
Yeah.
But every time you add a child to a family, it changes the dynamic, and that much more stress and that much more energy goes into it. And so, because we already had a biological child, I felt it important to make that feel as seamless as possible. And so we went with an infant.
Okay. What made you did that one? Would you adopt again?
Yes, actually, Jason and I thought about it. When she was about a year younger than she is now, she was asking for a sibling, and we actually considered it, and we just decided that we were, as a unit, we felt whole as a family. And I am 11 years older than I was with Spencer. So even though that I could do it, I had gone recently through cancer. And I just decided that our plate was full, and with health reasons and everything else, we were done. So we actually decided officially no, but we were open to it.
How long did the application process take?
From start to finish, the paperwork probably took 6 months.
That's not long.
Of intensive driving to Fort Smith, Homeland Security visits, foster, checking out your house, having your coordinator meet with you and do all the interviews and all of that. It was probably 6 to 7 months, and then the waiting process begins, where you put your packet out there and you wait for a match. And that part only took an additional, well, I can tell you exactly, we were matched on our wedding anniversary.
Oh, that's nice.
They called us on our getting ready to go to dinner on August 17th and said, we have a match for you. And then she was born exactly 3 months to the date. She was born October 17th.
That's crazy.
So total, I would say the whole process took about the same time as pregnancy, 9 to 10 months.
That's nice. Yeah. Well, that was it.
There you go.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask you a multitude of questions. If you don't want to answer them, you don't have to.
Okay.
What date did you adopt?
In 1966, in April.
What prompted you to adopt a child at this time?
We had been married 5 years, and I had not been able to get pregnant, and we were up at the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota at the time, and I went through the infertility, and they couldn't find any reason for it. And we had heard that the adoption system in Arkansas was through the state, and it was really a bad situation. Children were so neglected that were in the foster care at the time. So we decided to go with a private agency.
Okay. That's what Miss Jennifer did too. I read that one. Was there any factors that made it difficult to adopt, like through the agency? Were there any like troubles, or was it just like paperwork or?
Oh, no, with the adoption agency, were there any problems?
Yeah.
No, that was all handled very routinely, easily, quickly.
I've heard the agencies have a very, very efficient system of doing it, and they have everything squared away by the time you're in there.
Yeah. What was the process of adopting your child?
Well, a friend of mine in Minnesota had used this adoption agency called Children's Home Society in St. Paul, Minnesota. So I knew where to go. They had adopted a little boy from there, and he was a newborn. But so we went to that adoption agency, and we didn't care that it didn't have to be a newborn. So we said, it can be a little older, not like a 10-year-old,
Yeah.
but a little older.
Does your child know they are adopted?
Yes.
How did they find out, or how did you tell them?
I've just always mentioned it, even when he was 2, which is the age that we got him. He was 2 years old. I would just mention that in when we got you.
Yeah.
And he just kind of grew up with the knowledge.
That's what Dad said too.
I'm going to come in a bit off script here. Was there ever any trouble with it? Like, did he ever feel weird about it, or was it just kind of a natural thing for him?
I think it was just a fact of life. He didn't know any different, being 2. I mean, he didn't. I'm not sure that he remembers. You'll have to ask him if he remembers anything about the foster family, who seemed just wonderful.
Yeah.
But I don't think there was ever a problem.
It's good. I asked him a few times, and he's like, "Oh, I've just always kind of known." Yeah. Do you think the foster care system today is flawed?
I really don't know about today's system.
Yeah. Do you think back then it was?
Well, we didn't have any trouble, and as I said, the foster family that my son lived with for 2 years was just so nice. They had 3 other children, and the foster mother really felt like he was just her own. She told me when we went to get him and take him home with us that she would never keep a child that long again because it was too heartbreaking to let him go.
So I'm going to ask you our essential question, which is, if the adoption rate is going down and the rate of children entering the system is going up, then what is the purpose of using government funding to keep children in the foster care system?
Okay, could you repeat the question?
If the adoption rate is going down and the rate of children entering the system is going up, then what is the purpose of using government funding to keep them in the system?
Oh, well, I don't think they should use the money to keep them in the system, but they should use it to help them survive in the system, but to work. Use the money to work to get them out of the system.
Yeah.
Do you think there should be more planning? Many children age out of the system at this point. It's more of, there are actually a percentage of children who have a case plan established that is wait till you're 18, age out. And there's not a ton of planning that goes into when they age out. Do you think there should be a more stable system for that?
That would be a wonderful system to make sure that they have some kind of a skill, an opportunity to go to school, maybe to get scholarships. That way to help them not just be out working in a fast food place, say forever.
Yeah. Do you think adoption is for everyone?
Probably not for everyone.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Would you like your child to, in this case, have found their birth family?
Well, it doesn't matter to me. he's my child.
Yeah.
So it didn't bother me when he found his birth mother. That might bring a little bit of knowledge and closure, and it didn't bother me at all.
Dad told me it bothered Aunt Melanie, Aunt Michelle more than it bothered you. What made you choose going private adoption versus going through a state adoption?
Well, as I said earlier, because I'd heard we were about ready to move back to Arkansas because my husband had finished his training at the clinic. And we had just heard the state system here was so poor that we wanted to adopt privately or use a private agency. So that's the reason we did that.
Makes sense. What steps did you have to go through to adopt a child?
Okay, we contacted the agency, and then we had to go in for an interview, and they take down your education and kind of your background and what you plan to do as a job in the future. And then they have a home inspection. I nearly killed myself. I remember washing the carpet, your carpet cleaner machine, and I just had it perfect. But they did have a home visit just to see what, kind of how you were living. And then I don't remember if we went back up for another interview or not. They may have just called us and said, see, this all went fairly fast because we said it didn't have to be a newborn. We didn't have to have a newborn, so it seemed like they called us, I don't remember how long, but just, I'm sure in a matter of weeks, and said they had a little boy, 2 years old, or almost 2, that they thought would fit in our family. And so it all went pretty fast.
Awesome. That's faster than what Miss Jennifer said. They think theirs took like 6 months, maybe.
I know it wasn't that long. Yeah.
My aunt, I think hers was really quickly because she was like 16, 17 when she got adopted, and it was a matter of she was in a very bad situation, and my grandma had been friends with her family, and she's like, I've got to get her out of this. So I don't think theirs took long at all, because by the time my dad had moved in a few months, she was already living with the family and adopted in. So it doesn't seem very strange. Once the older you get, I feel like the less intensive the search is going to be.
Definitely. Were there a lot of kids to adopt at this time?
Well, I don't know. I just know that my friend adopted, and then they realized, this couple, that they couldn't have children, so they went on to adopt another child too. So they had 2, and that's just the only ones I knew at the time.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
Makes sense. Was there so adopting my dad and then having my Aunt Melanie, Aunt Michelle a few years later, was there ever that difference of he's adopted?
Well, not to me. It might have been to them, but it has never been to me, because to me, he's just my child. I don't think anything different.
Yeah.
So it was no difference to me.
Anything?
Are there any stories or any memorable events you have during the process of adoption or the after effects of that you feel notable to share?
The process of the adoption or after.
Kind of settling
in.
into it, things like that.
Well, I know we took him home with us, and my next door neighbor had a little girl that was 3 at the time, her only child. So I had told her, we were adopting this little boy, and she loaned me her baby bed. And so I put that in the room, and we had a little dog at the time, and I had a little throw rug by the bed. The dog had never wet in the house. And the dog went in there, and just maybe the first night or 2, I remember Mark hollering, "Mama, Mama," and and I would, run in there and say, "Oh, I'm here," and then I never saw any other effect. He's quiet anyway. He's not a very verbal person, so I don't know what was going on in his mind, because the foster home had, I think, a baby and 2 other children. They're natural children. And the little 6-year-old boy, I remember, he and Mark, I'm sure, had played together a lot, and so Mark might have missed him. I don't know, but when we were starting to leave the foster home, the little boy ran out and gave Mark some of his pennies. I thought that was so sweet. But then the little girl next door, that kind of worked out good. He had another child to play with right away, and so we would get them together pretty often. And I really don't remember any other, we just kind of went along.
That's what when I asked my dad about that stuff, he's like, I really don't remember much because he was
I've
young.
asked him before what he remembered, because I don't remember anything when I was 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He says he remembers just like simple things like I don't know if he remembers the agency or the adoption or foster family or anything like that. From what
I don't much
know.
think he does when I've asked him. I
does.
don't think he remembered anything.
How did since he has siblings, how did you know he was adopted, or did you like have to tell them?
Oh, I think they just always heard it like he did.
Yeah.
I probably, just not make a big deal, but just say, oh, now when we adopted you, or when we got you something,
Made it.
but not very often, but just they grew up with it, so I don't think there was ever any,
Yeah, there was never that.
never a big deal.
Do you remember anything about the adoption process? Because Grandma said she doesn't remember you remembering much of it, but
I do remember standing on a couch,
very vivid.
very vivid, and being there with the social worker of the adoption agency, and you were there. That's about all I remember.
Yeah.
And I remember the little girl that lived across the street.
Next door.
No, next door.
She had
Yes.
red hair.
Red
Do you
hair.
remember that? Her name was Ruth. I don't
Yeah.
know why I remember that.
Yeah, I don't remember her name, but her name was Ruth.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Don't remember
that's
the
about all
last
I
name.
remember of Minnesota. So,
Yeah, yeah.
Those
Well,
two
see,
things.
we came home. Let's see, we got you in April, and then we moved back in 1st of July, end of June or 1st of July. So you weren't up
So
there
we're
much
there
longer.
long. Down to Van Buren.
Yeah.
Growing up, did you ever feel like it was weird being adopted? Like, was there ever that line of like, oh, I am adopted? This.
I never felt weird about it, but I always had a feeling that it was not that I was different, but that there was a situation there, you know, that I was chosen. I don't know how to else put it.
Yeah.
That they picked me.
So there was a little difference.
There was a little difference, you
Yeah.
know, but we were always happy.
Yeah.
It felt like a family. you
Yeah.
know.
It just,
Normal,
that's what I
everyday
said. Yeah,
family.
we just kind of went along. Did no different.
Oh no, didn't know any different. But there was always something there in the back of my brain going, where'd I come from? You know,
Yeah.
who am I?
Yeah. Makes sense. We asked Grandma how she reacted, how she felt about you finding a birth family,
Mm-hmm.
and she said she was okay with that and everything.
Right.
How do you feel like Aunt
Well-
Melanie, Michelle, and Grandma reacted, like from your perspective?
Well, when I first, I've always wondered about them and who they were.
Yeah.
And, and so my curiosity, I always kind of wanted to know where I came from. Now, I was worried about what Mom would think or Dad, if they would be upset if I looked, did a search for them. But we never really discussed it, we were always so busy.
Yeah, because I was 5 or 4.
Right. Now, Melanie and Michelle my sisters took it harder than you did, I believe.
I don't know. I never was
And I don't
aware
think they
of
took
that.
it bad.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just
No, I didn't
when they
know
found out
that.
I had birth sisters, they
Did they feel?
they felt a little,
I never.
a little
I never
different.
realized.
But, and I don't think it was a bad thing.
Yeah.
It was just what?
Yeah.
You have sisters?
But where are your
But
sisters?
where are your sisters? So
Growing up,
you just mentioned like feeling chosen. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
I just started talking.
And that's not the right way to put it.
Yeah, it's just my aunt kind of talks about it because she's adopted as well.
Mhm.
She just kind of said she remembers much of her family because she was adopted as a teenager, and she just said it feels very different. She was when you think about memories of your other family, it doesn't really feel like a family. It feels more like you were visiting someone.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yes.
when you're with your adopted family, it kind of feels more like you're actually with your family at that point. Just even if you knew something before that, that felt like your family at that point.
Yes. And that's kind of how I feel with my birth family. It's more like I'm visiting
Yeah,
someone.
just maybe relatives. Yeah.
Right, distant relatives. You know, even though they all are showering me with love, and I'm kind of like, okay.
I don't know.
You know, but okay. That's wonderful and all. You know?
Awesome, thanks. I remember because I was there. We went up a few years ago and met the whole family, the whole Indian family for
Yes.
Kushi's funeral.
Yes,
How did you react with that, walking into that situation?
it was very strange, very. You know, you felt like a stranger in a strange land almost. You know, they all knew you, but
Yeah.
because even some of them, my cousins that were a little older than me, they had kept me as when I was a baby, and their family remembered me as a baby. So it was kind of interesting to talk to them, and they were like, "Oh, we always wondered what happened to you," you know. And they were all kind of excited to get to know that I was doing okay. And Kushi is
So it's not
is
just
grandma.
age.
Yeah, Kushi is grandma in
Dakota.
Dakota language. When you first found the Native American tribe and everything, I remember my reaction was like I was excited because me and our set of grandparents was awesome. But I remember that first time the first time I remember them visiting was when she bought me a playhouse.
Yes, that was the second time we met them.
Okay.
The first time they were driving through back to Minneapolis from Florida is when I first met her.
So when you first met her, like what was that situation?
Boy, it was awkward. It was. I was so scared. Just I don't know why, but I was so scared. I don't know if I was, I didn't know how she was going to react.
Yeah.
But she was all crying and just totally upset. And she said, "I prayed and prayed all the time for you." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, that is so wild." So it was different, and it was interesting at the same time because I got to meet my brother. So.
Growing up, because we know now, did you always know you were Native American?
I believe we always knew that, Mom. I think.
Mhm.
I think
Oh, yeah.
we knew that.
Oh yeah, we
Yeah,
did.
we always knew that.
Was there like any?
We didn't know what tribe or
Okay,
where, but we always knew I was Native American.
Did you have any friends that were adopted also
Friends that were adopted.
growing up? Because I know you don't have any now. So
Do you remember
Scott.
Craig Brown
No, it was
in Fort
Gregory?
Smith? We moved up here when you were 4. But do you remember Gregory Brown?
I remember Gregory
Y'all
Brown.
played together a lot.
Fort Smith,
Well, see,
yes.
he was adopted, and that's why we knew what adoption agency to use, because the Browns used that agency.
really.
So when we decided to adopt, we went to the same agency that they had used.
So they were up in Minnesota.
Yeah, he was a neurosurgeon.
How funny.
Uh-huh.
Amazing. That y'all came from the same area.
Yeah, wasn't that funny? Well, actually, I taught school with his mother in Fort Smith, and so when she heard that we were moving up to Rochester, she said, "Oh, you must, call my son when you get up there, and he can help you, find a place to live and all this," because they had already been there a year or two.
And they'd used the same adoption.
Uh-huh. And they used that, the one we used, so that's how we knew.
what prompted you to look for your birth family?
When we had you in Dakota, we wanted to know the medical history of my family for future reference.
Yeah.
Heart disease or whatever. Whatever they have in their past. So that's the biggest reason why we did the search. The other ones, I was just curious.
None of my friends back then, other than Shirley, had adopted.
Adopting a child, how did the rest of like your family and Grandpa's family react to that?
Oh, they were happy for us. That was just their reaction. And I remember my parents sent him a little sailor suit.
Oh,
I still remember that.
White
Do you have
Yeah,
pictures?
white sailor
Do you have
suit, with a little
pictures?
collar.
I want a picture.
Yeah, well, you probably have.
That'll be the
Yeah.
cover for our podcast.
Yeah.
Bam.
In
cover.
fact, it's upstairs on the
Really?
wall, I think.
Oh, my
Yeah.
goodness.
Is it on this wall?
Yeah, go up and turn before you forget.
When you and Mom decided to have children, did you ever consider adopting since you were adopted?
We discussed it, but we figured we'd wait and see if we could have kids. And
Yeah. Have you ever thought about it since then, like after having me or Dakota?
I've always thought about it. Yes, I've always, even growing up, thought I would adopt someday, but it's just never.
Never happened.
It's never happened. It's never become a. I guess. I always thought about adopting though.
Yeah.
But and I think that stems from being adopted. You know, you that's
Yeah.
just your mindset.
Makes sense.
Probably wasn't a big enough memory to remember, but I do remember doing that. And I mean, it's just like the third or fourth day you were home.
No friends.
So it was
That
right
was-
away after your
I don't
birthday
remember
was.
that.
No, you wouldn't. I was telling them earlier, I don't remember a thing when I was 2.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think back, what is my earliest memory?